Hi, I'm Kimberly Lane.
I'm Tom Henschel.
I'm Sonia Jante. Together, we're unlocking leadership. We are three experienced executive coaches with very different disciplines. In every episode, we take a question from a real client and provide key insights to address their challenges from our three different perspectives. It is a holistic approach to understand challenges and opportunities. Here's our question today. It comes from Amit in Dallas. What happens in an environment that is inclusive? How does it affect the results of the team? Kimberly, what would be your
Ooh,
description of
my favorite topic, Amit. Popular topic these days, right? Inclusivity and an inclusive environment. Thanks for wanting to really truly understand what are those key components that make a workplace an inclusive environment. I like to kind of always talk about three specific things that you can kind of identify within your workplace so that you feel inclusive. The first one is from a voice perspective, you feel free to speak up and share your opinions, your challenges, successes, and even failures without feeling like you're going to get judged or there's some repercussion around that. That's number one. Number two, you feel like you belong. You feel like you fit in. You feel like you're welcomed. You're safe by the culture, everybody in the workplace, and especially the team you work with. And then third, you feel valued not only as an employee for your contributions, but more importantly, you feel valued as the uniqueness of you. The uniqueness of you is celebrated, and you're not feeling like you have to conform to some particular criteria. So all three of those put together as a result from a team perspective allows everybody on the team to feel safe, to be able to speak up, to be able to disagree, to be able to challenge, to be able to be creative. And everybody feels safe enough and belonging, and such that creates a very, I think, a more joyful environment. People are more willing to work together. People accomplish their goals, I think, much quicker from a team perspective. There's better collaboration. And I just think just an overall sense of well-being and less stress in the workplace. So that's kind of how I would first start to answer kind of what's part of an inclusive environment and what that benefit is from a team. Who wants to take it on?
Me, I want to jump in. Wow. So listen, I just am going to come from a different place once again. Sorry. Um,
No
when
need to
I
apologize, Tom. We might just
when
kick you off after this, but that's okay.
let's see if I walk the plank. Here we go. Am I going to like sink myself? So I volunteer. I'm on the board of directors of a nonprofit here in where I live in Van Nuys, California. And social justice is built into its founding mission from 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So it has worked so hard to be an inclusive environment. And I want to tell you, I've had such an interesting experience being on the board and watching what it means to be inclusive and how damn hard it is. It is so hard to do well. And when you try and like take care of one place over here, something else bulges out. And I mean things like we give a lot of financial aid. So we are trying to think socioeconomically. And when you do that, other things happen that might make it non-inclusive over there. It's like, oh my goodness, it is hard. So I think, when Amit says what happens, I want to tell you the biggest thing that I see in this organization, because I think they're not perfect, but they've been thinking about it for 40 years. They're working on it, I think what happens is an ability, and you've said this in some way, Kimberly, an ability to talk about it as an issue.
Mhm.
What do we want inclusivity to mean? I mean, and I'll just tell it in its simplest way. So in 2016, I worked with a tax group. They were 27, 28 people at that time. And we did the DISC assessment with them, right? That's really fun. It's great. Everybody has a good time when you do DISC. But they were so heavily weighted as people who were highly conscientious. Like 2/3 of their team was there in that quadrant. And we had a conversation of like, is this who you want to be? Because by the way, I don't care, right? I'm just a facilitator. What do I care? But is it who you want to be? Is this inclusive? Is it good for the team? But hey, look, you're providing a service. You're this tax service to this big company. Like, you know, you need to be accurate. Is this who you want to be? So I just did DISC with them again 5 years later, and it's almost a perfect even distribution. And now they're at 44. And I know that it's because the team leader thought that was part of an inclusive mission.
Okay.
And he was like, no, as we hire, we need to think about this. So he's been thinking about it every day, right? And I think that's the only way you get it done is think about it every day.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, because clearly a leader making a deliberate choice 5 years back about what he wanted it to look like. I've worked with some CEOs who've looked at the same thing in terms of their boards and who's on their boards to help them, if you will, have a better background and better thought partnership throughout their reign, if you will. You know, one of the things that I think about with inclusiveness, and I think I'm glad that Tom brought it up, and I think it has to be defined, because I think that there is this assumption that I get to know everything about everyone. And that's like not possible. Even in your own family, you don't know everything about everyone.
And you don't want to.
But precisely. So I think that what matters in an inclusive environment is that there is, if you will, mission driven, that there is some goal that we're all aiming for, and we're all clear about that, so that we can, if you will, hold each other accountable, or make sure that we are out there gathering information, gathering resources to help accomplish that. I think that's important. I do think that if it is inclusive in the sense that there is the conflict conversations that are held that are constructive, not destructive, then there's going to be some benefits. There won't be the meeting after the meeting. So
Right.
there should be some kind of time, your time utilization and your emotional utilization should be easier. So there should be probably less time to get to the core of the issue or to resolving something. And there should be less drama around, you know, do I need to bring this up, or should I talk to anybody about it?
It's safety. It's what Kimberly said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the only other thing is that back to but it's not about knowing everything about everybody else. And therefore being able to, if you will, establish some ground rules about inclusivity within what we're doing, or our group, or our department, so that it allows for people understanding why there's going to be some things that are not shared with everyone because of timing, because of legal issues or whatever. So that, you know, back to expectations, manage your expectations, and therefore you can participate in a way that gives you as much benefit of being inclusive without dragging you all the way down into having to be, connected to every single thing with everybody. It's not possible. The personality styles that we have, the differences that we have as human beings, prevent us from actually all becoming the same. And so we have to be able to look at it as a balance. We're managing and mastering the balance of being in an environment that creates inclusivity.
And I think to master that balance, Amit, whether you're a leader or not, we all are leaders in some capacity. I encourage you to seek to understand, because judgment comes quickly when we don't understand somebody else's perspective or where they're coming from, or maybe it's the way they dress. Who knows? Maybe it's the religious affiliation. So seek to understand. Ask, why do you feel that way? Why don't you want to move forward on this project? Or why do you this? Why do you that? So seek to understand. You might be amazed at the answers that people share with you about why they feel the way they do, why they choose not to move forward on a project, why they practice a certain religion. When you seek to understand, it gathers information and you do less judging that way. So that's one way you can also naturally model inclusivity. And then number two, when you're in a meeting, encourage going around the room to those individuals that don't typically want to speak up or are too shy, and ask their opinion on the matter at hand, and give them free space in a psychologically safe place to voice their opinion. And I think the more that gets modeled, the more people will feel like they belong, will feel inclusive, and will feel willing to express their uniqueness, their ideas, their creativity, all for the better of the team at the end of the day, might add.
Now, something that was a bit of an eye opener to me. First off, Kimberly, I just have to say how strongly I agree with what you just said about making sure everyone speaks. That's a form of inclusivity. And a friend of mine who's a really fantastic facilitator casually one day over breakfast mentioned something that she does. And I heard it and I went, oh, I don't do that and I should. Oh my goodness, because it's about inclusivity. And you know what she does?
But
Especially on Zoom. She says nobody can answer for the first 30 seconds. So she'll put a prompt in the room and make everybody go on mute. And you can answer when you're ready, but you have to at least wait 30 seconds. And what it means is the introverts get a chance.
Time.
Yeah.
Love it.
And there was a team I was on recently where they self-regulated themselves. They paused intentionally. And there would be a long pause. And then almost inevitably, somebody would say, Margaret, do you have a thought? They were all clearly waiting for Margaret. It was fantastic. Talk about inclusive, right? I mean, really adjusting for the style. You talked about that too, Sonia, like all these different styles. It's just that. If a leader would just create some silence and allow the introverts to think, and it's not a race, like don't race to put things in the chat, just that might be inclusive.
Another thing that I use that I think is very effective is to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak and people get the advance notice. You're kind of, as you're talking, I might say, Sonia, I'm going to pass this over to you after I finish my thought, but here's what I think about that issue, blah, 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 blah. Sonia, what are your thoughts on why inclusivity is so important in the workplace, and restating the question again so that in case they checked out, but as soon as they heard their name, Sonia's already, oh, I'm up next. I've got to start putting together my thoughts, and then restating the question helps her again. Am I on point? So I think that, there's a lot of dynamics in including people on a Zoom, powerful tools to set people up for success. That's what you're trying to do, right?
I love that, Kimberly. The way I hear that done, and really, I really admire it because it doesn't occur to me in the moment, is, they'll say something like, and Kimberly, I really want to hear your idea about this too, blah, 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 right?
Exactly.
So it's like, it's a great cue, and so I love that. Great idea.
Yeah, I have just two small things to add. And one is, when we were meeting in person way back when, there was a meeting I attended, and the facilitator started off the meeting by saying, we're going to do something that will unify all of us. And I was like, oh, really? And she said, I want everybody to just say, and she said, I just want you to do it. We're going to do it for just 1 minute, and then, we'll start the meeting. And it was so interesting because when it started, you could hear all the different pitches, like everybody had different pitches. By the time we came to, close to the minute, all the pitches were now in harmony. It was like, and that's how quickly our sound can connect to creating a different kind of energy field. I thought it was fascinating.
That's very fascinating. I love stuff like that. That to me, I love it.
It's also interesting to think about that as an idea around inclusivity. Right? I mean, it's just interesting.
Exactly. Then the last thing is that, one of the things that I remember people telling me a lot about that was frustrating to them was being in meetings in which you knew that there was people who spoke up just to be heard and to be able to repeat whatever somebody else said. So it really felt like they took away time from other people. What I have learned is that during the Zoom, more calls being moved to Zoom, it has a different effect. So the people who were doing that for that purpose have stopped doing it because it's so clear what it is that you're doing. That it's like,
Spotlight,
oh,
spotlight.
okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, they're trying, and so I think in some way there is like an added benefit that has created more space for inclusivity, because some of the traditional shenanigans or strategies that people were using that were not as constructive to develop the whole are now, if you will, falling by the wayside.
Yeah. Tom,
So-
you mentioned that kind of one time. Remember you said we have to talk less on Zoom, right? We have to shorten our content because people don't want to listen to us as long as in person. So it's hard to pontificate on Zoom, right? Without having a clear message.
Well, that's my experience is people tune out. It's just hard. Yeah, it's hard. It's funny. One of the things that I think about this whole idea around inclusivity, it goes back to where you started, Kimberly, the idea of people talking to each other. I think dialogue is a skill that many of us do not actually know very well. I think dialogue is something that often gets trained, and it's not always easy. I mean, we think we do it. It's just like we all think we're good drivers, right? It's like
No, I
we
don't.
all think.
No, I don't.
And most everybody goes, yeah, and I'm a pretty good listener, right? I mean, like dialogue skills are trainable and learnable. And for somebody like Amit, the way the question is posed is what happens in those environments? And one of the things is people have dialogue, but they've learned it. They've learned it together. Even if it's just the leader who teaches, like this nonprofit where I work, the guy who founded it taught the whole place to do it. I mean, he did it, right? He was the training mechanism, but it was done consciously. And I think that's part of the idea is that inclusivity, I think it doesn't happen by accident.
Oh, that's for sure. You do have to be really aware and almost self-regulating. Was I being judgmental in the way I responded to Brian's question or Mitt's question, right? I mean, you have to be self-regulating, especially in this environment, to really make sure that you're not being biased and you're being inclusive.
Well, and also, I mean, think about how impossible this bar is. Where do we end? Like, really, what does inclusive mean? Does it mean we would like to hire felons? And we go after that by, we would like to hire people with handicaps? I mean, and by the way, I'm not making this as a joke. I'm saying many companies don't ask what inclusive really means. It goes back to that idea of defining it that you talked about, Sonia. So yeah, this is complex. And by the way, here we are, three white people with privilege, talking about inclusivity, right? I mean, I think we help facilitate it, but this is not an issue that hits us in a particular way. I think we tend to be included. At least I do as a white male. I think that. Maybe you don't think that. I don't know.
The only thing I want to clarify is I've always been thought of as a woman of color.
Well, I don't think of you that way. Sorry.
So I'm like impressed. Oh my gosh.
I've always thought of you. I don't think of you as a woman of color. And I don't know if that's a bad thing, but I mean, I've known you a long time. It's not how you were filed in my head.
Okay. I'm just
No, but look, for some people, it would be hurtful. And it would be unintentionally uninclusive. And I would not have meant it. And I would have screwed that moment up. And that's possible. That's what happens.
Yeah. So the only thing I do want to say is in today's environment, I think we have to have thicker skin. We absolutely cannot be taking so many things and assuming the worst.
Yeah.
Go back to the time when we actually assumed the best and we actually had thicker skin. That would be my.
Yeah.
And
give people the benefit of the doubt. I love that. And let's just be kind to one another, basically.
So this weekend I was at a conference that's, I don't know why it's called the Pollyanna Conference. I will find out why, because it's just like the wrong name, but it's about diversity in independent schools here in Los Angeles, private schools. And so you can only come as a school if you bring someone from every constituency, parent, board member, teacher, faculty, administrator. They all have to be there together, right? I sat in a room with other board members hearing profound stories of personal experience of discrimination. profound, hurtful about their children being excluded, themselves as children being excluded, in a way that I hear these stories and I am humbled, and I realize I don't know how to do this, right? And so here we are responding to Amit in a way about inclusivity as we think of it, but I'm also aware that I am an amateur. I am not the expert on this. Maybe that's a place we can end.
I think so.
So I'm going to say, Amit, thank you for bringing it up. We're so grateful to all of you who send us questions. Thank you so much. And I hope you got some tools. I did, frankly. It was great listening to you. Our listeners, we hope you get value. That's why we do this. If you do get value, like us, share us. You know how to make us visible. Help us out. Write a review. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And really, most importantly, we would like to be of service to you. If you have a question for us, if we can help you in any way, please contact us. The information's in the show notes. Shoot us an email at info@unlockingleadership-askthecoaches.com. Really, we would love to hear from you. Join us next time, and we will be talking about how to give you the keys to unlocking your best leadership.